It's Tiffy time.
And that is all it's gonna be.
Toodles!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of For the Love of Wrestling. I, of course, am your host, the Renegade of Wrestling, JJ Williams. Happy Wednesday. Lots of stuff going on here today at the Casa D18 Studios. I'm going to expand Wednesdays a little bit. So far, this is the second week now where I'm going to be covering TNA Xplosion, which is available exclusively on the TNA Plus app or every Tuesday on YouTube via the TNA Wrestling YouTube channel. And today I'm also going to cover the season premiere of NWA Powerrr, which you can now find on the CW app. If any of you guys have that, you can find the National Wrestling Alliance there. I'm going to cover the first episode, and depending on if you guys want some more of that, then I may continue with that going forward. But I felt with this being the premiere episode on the CW app, it deserved a little bit of recognition and coverage, and we're going to get to that. We've also got WWE NXT as we do every Wednesday, but let's kick things off with Xplosion. And the first match on Xplosion was the Man Beast Rhino taking on a guy by the name of Champagne Scene. And if I'm being honest, this was just a so-so match. Could have been a whole lot better. Rhino may be older, maybe a more experienced vet, but he can still go in the ring. Champagne Scene seemed like the type of guy that could do some stuff, but for whatever reason, the magic wasn't there. They just didn't click. Rhino got the victory, and post-match, Crazy Steve, the TNA Digital Media Champion, comes to the ring and seemingly challenges Rhino to a match for the digital title. Not sure what's going on here. This is the first I'm really seeing of Crazy Steve. Not sure why these two have beef. Hopefully it's something that'll get explored and developed as the shows go on, either Xplosion or Impact. We then had another Around the Ring segment with Gia Miller. You may remember last week she did one with Ace Austin from the ABC. Today it's Jody Threat that she talks with, and that we get to know a little bit better. This time the two women discuss their love for brunch. You know, what it is about brunch that make things so great, ideal brunch settings, go-to brunch drinks. Jody Threat puts over a Caesar, which is very similar to a Bloody Mary, but the tomato juice is cut with clam juice, giving a different texture and flavor. It was a fun segment, but if I'm being honest, I think I enjoyed the Ace Austin one last week better, despite the fact that Gia Miller said that Ace Austin bored her to tears. I found that one just a little bit more entertaining. It could partially be because Gia Miller was coming off very marquee to Jody Threat. She constantly was saying that she wants to be Jody Threat when she grows up. So it almost kind of gave that creepy vibe. Maybe that's why I was a little bit turned off by this one. Not really sure. Main event was Jason Hotch of the Good Hands taking on Rich Swann. AJ Francis, the former Top Dollar, comes out for commentary on this, as he's been trying to get, he's been trying to get Rich Swann to join him and form an alliance with him. It was a good match. It was pretty fast-paced, decent offense maneuvers, but a weak finish in my opinion. Jason Hotch got the victory over Rich Swann, which honestly surprised the crap out of me. But after some of the pain and the punishment that Swann put onto Hotch, Hutch seemingly caught this match out of nowhere with a simple finisher. It just kind of was what it was. I could have been so much better, in my opinion. This week's Xplosion, if I'm being honest, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. I thought last week's episode was a lot better. Hopefully this is just a little hiccup in the road. And no, I am not going to judge TNA completely based off of what I see. Excuse me. Kids went back to school today after 2 days out of school because of the weather. So I have to try and get readjusted to getting back up early again. I apologize for the yawns. What I was saying is I'm not going to solely judge my fandom of TNA based off of Xplosion, because at the end of the day, Xplosion is the weaker show anyway. I mean, hell, between the around the ring segment, between showing matches from old TNA pay-per-views, it's definitely a filler show. Basically, it's the matches that would be dark matches, but they're getting TV time. So that's kind of the way I look at it. So I'm not going to hold my opinion of TNA to what I see on Xplosion necessarily. I will be rating it more based off of Impact and the pay-per-views, PLEs. But come No Surrender, I may get rid of Xplosion if Xplosion doesn't start presenting a more worthwhile product. 4 out of 10 for this week's Xplosion. Before I move on to the NWA, I am going to take a moment to do a quick trailer, show you where you can find all the friends of the Jeff Meacham Network Multiverse of Media, and then we will be back to discuss the season premiere of NWA Powerrr on the CW app.
And now, preview time. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
We are back. What's going on, Emmanuel? Good to see you. You haven't missed a whole lot except for me talking about TNA Xplosion. We're now going to get into NWA Powerrr. Again, this was the season premiere of the show. First one on the CW app. Every match on this show was a title match. So again, I felt that justified me tuning in, giving it a chance. And I will say this, I found it better than Xplosion this week, but not by much. Good enough that I'm still going to tune in for a couple more weeks. I figure a month is a good run to give them to try to hook me with storylines and everything and their match quality. You can't really judge based off of 1 week. You've got to give it about a month to build to stuff, I feel. I do know they're going to be having a pay-per-view or a special event for the CW coming up in March. So I may go until that. We shall see. So the show NWA Powerrr kicks off with a NWA World Tag Team Championship match as Tim Storm and Jax Dane challenge the team of Blunt Force Trauma, Damage, and Carnage for the championships. Blood Force Trauma are the champions here. They're managed by Aaron Stevens, better known, of course, as Damian Sandow. They have a Doom type of gimmick. There are a couple of big buff black guys that wear masks to conceal their identities. So think Doom before they showed their faces. Damage is the former Rodney Mack from WWE, and Carnage is a gentleman by the name of Marsh Rocket. Match started out decent and rowdy as all four men started brawling before the bell, but once the bell rang and the action really got rolling, things really seemed to start to slow down. Aaron Stevens came in to try to get a cheap shot and help his team, but he gets put in the claw by Tim Storm. This allows Damage to roll Storm up, retain the tag titles. Very mediocre match for me. Not exactly the way you want to start off a TV show. You want to start off hot. You want to get people's attention. And I felt like this match fell a little bit flat. We then had a gentleman named Mims, who is the NWA World Television Champion, cut a promo about his match next week against Max the Impaler, who is the NWA Women's Television Champion. And apparently this match is going to unify the two TV championships. Should be interesting to see that match next week. A intergender match. Takes me back to the days of Andy Kaufman fighting the women. But Max the Impaler is no joke. I've seen Max the Impaler before. She is a big, bad bitch. I don't know Mims all that well, so we're going to have to see what happens with this match next week. We then had a Matt Cardona interview regarding his main event match tonight against EC3 for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, and he claims to be the real world's champion because he never lost the NWA Championship. He had to surrender it due to injury, and he calls himself the Deathmatch King. We then had a match between Tiffany Nieves and Kenzie Page for the Burke, the NWA Women's World Championship. This was a solid women's match between both competitors. Both women put on solid performances. Nieves locked in a Texas cloverleaf at one point, but Page was too close to the ropes, got a rope break. Page was going to use the Burke, but she got caught by the referee. And as the referee was taking the title and putting it away, Kenzie Page used some pepper spray into Tiffany Nieves' eyes, got the victory that way. Win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat. Wise words from a former WWE commentator. All in all, very solid match. I almost would have put this match to kick the show off because I felt like it was a lot better quality than have the tag titles be the cool down match before getting to the main event. Just a thought for Billy Corgan, if he watches this, which I doubt, take into consideration, especially since these matches are pre-taped and it's not live TV. Like, you can kind of get the feeling of the way the match goes, the crowd reaction. You can move things around in post-production. We then had EC3 cutting a promo on Matt Cardona, saying that if he died today, he would be resurrected in 3 days because he is the overman. Because he is so over, man. Whatever. Never been the biggest EC3 fan. He came into TNA during an era where I wasn't really paying attention. Didn't care for him as Derek Bateman. So just kind of whatever on EC3. Main event was Matt Cardona versus EC3 in an ultimate match of death for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. Sweet Charlotte, the 10 pounds of gold, the legendary 10 pounds of gold. This was an intense fucking match with some serious brutality. For some reason, all the weapons were painted gold. I don't know if they had Goldfinger backstage or whatever, but Gold Member from Austin Powers. But chairs, doors, tables, action figures, thumbtacks, light tubes, all used in this match. This was an all-out brawl. Saw EC3 retain the 10 pounds of gold over the man who never lost the title, Matt Cardona. I highly recommend, if nothing else, you download the CW app just to watch this one match. It was knucking futz, for real. The fact that weapons were painted gold was an interesting touch. Once they started to draw blood, it switched from color to black and white, which was interesting. I thought that was an interesting little dynamic because CW doesn't want to show a whole lot of blood, so they made it black and white. The light tubes was just like, oh my God, the way they exploded over Cardona's head. Definitely recommend checking that match out. All in all, I'm going to give NWA Powerrr a 6 out of 10 for the week. If any of you guys watched it, what did you think? If you didn't watch it, again, if you have a Roku television, you can download the CW app on it. It is free to download, free to watch, doesn't cost anything. Give it a try. Watch it until their next pay-per-view. Give them a legitimate chance, and if you don't like it, delete the app. That's going to do it for my Powerrr coverage. We're going to take another quick commercial break. When we get back, we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of Wednesday's show. The stuff that you guys are used to hearing me talk about. WWE, NXT, and why, Mellow, why. We will be back.
And now, preview time. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
And in addition to everything you just saw in that trailer, we will also be covering AEW Dynamite tonight, 4:45 Pacific, 7:45 Eastern. As in our main event, Steen and Darby Allin challenge Ricky Starks and Big Bill for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. This very well could be Steen's first and only championship reign in AEW, and we felt that it was big enough to call the action for and give the respect to, because Steen is an icon. Emmanuel says he's going to check it out. Didn't know NWA was already airing on CW. Yeah. First episode dropped yesterday, and it's going to be every Tuesday thereafter, bro. So give it a check out. Like I said, I'm at least going to continue to watch it until the first NWA pay-per-view. Give it a chance to develop the storylines, hook me in with the characters, see what happens from there. So now getting into NXT. Byron Saxton joins Vic Joseph on commentary this week. And we begin with Carmelo Hayes coming out to the ring. He grabs a chair, puts the chair in the middle of the ring, grabs the microphone, takes in the entire crowd booing him out the building. Not yet. Folds up the chair and leaves the arena. It's like, okay, this is interesting. He's going to make us wait for everything. He's going to make the suspense as to why. He's not just going to give it to us right out the gate. And I kind of liked that. I thought it was a nice little twist to things. We then got some Vengeance Day highlights before getting Baron Corbin and Braun Breaker in front of the announce table to celebrate their victory in winning the Dusty Cup tournament. They call out the D'Angelo family because they get a title shot, but instead, Axiom and Nathan Frazier come out in order to get down to our first contest, which is Axiom and Nathan Frazier versus Edris Enofi and Malik Blade. Braun and Corbin join Vic and Saxton on commentary, and this was a fantastic opening contest. Went almost 30 minutes. They took 2 commercial breaks during this match. Fast-paced and action-packed, Frazier and Axiom picked up the victory. Post-match, Braun and Corbin attacked the victors, which brought the D'Angelo family to the ringside area, and a challenge is made for next week, the D'Angelo family versus the Wolf Dogs for the tag titles, and it is confirmed later in the night that the match will occur. I gotta wonder here if this is going to be the end of the D'Angelo family and the Wolf Dogs are going to take the titles. I could almost see a similar scenario to what's going on right now with Trick and Mello between Braun and Corbin. And they win the titles next week. They hold them until Roadblock or the week after Roadblock. Then they lose them, setting up Corbin versus Braun at Stand and Deliver, with Braun then going up to the main roster since he's already being courted by both Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce. But I feel like we need to get that final NXT major match out of Braun, and Stand and Deliver is the perfect time to do it. And then he can even have a match on the Mania main card, probably night 2. That way he doesn't pull double duty on night 1, having wrestled at Stand and Deliver and night 1. But I just think that would be great booking. If they win the titles, bro, I don't think they're going to have a long run. That's the thing. It's only going to be used as a stepping stone to make this feud go down. We then go to the parking lot and we see Ilya Dragunov arrive, and they try to interview him, but he says it's not the time. He's here to get answers from Mello. We then go to the ring and we get an Ilya Dragunov promo, and he says that he likes and respects Trick and that he would be a worthy champion. He then calls out Mello, as he calls him a traitorous son of a bitch. Instead, Dijak comes out, and Dijak says that he knows how to break those that think that they are unbreakable. He then punches Ilya right in the nose, drawing blood from his nose, which was already broken at the pay-per-view, or at least that's what they're pushing. I'm not positive it was actually broken, but they're saying it's a broken nose. And then Dijak just popped him right back in it, drawing blood again. We then go backstage, and Thea Hale and JC Jane chase you, discussing the success of the calendar, selling out online in only 30 minutes. By the way, if y'all are looking for the Ladies of Chase You calendar, it just got restocked this morning. So go to www.shop.com, get yourself the Ladies of Chase You calendar. So they're talking about that and how they saved Chase U. And Thea's hyped because Riley Osborne's about to have a match, and JC has to calm her down like, look. You need to play hard to get. You don't want to come across as being too desperate. And so Thea kind of like, yeah, okay, I can be hard to get. I can be hard to get. This then brings us to Von Wagner and Mr. Stone discussing the disappointment of losing the Heritage Cup match last week. Stone's kids come in and they try to convince their dad to team with Uncle Von for a tag team match, which is made official later on in the evening. So next week, it'll be Von Wagner and Mr. Stone versus Noam Dar and Oro Mensa of the Metaphor. We then get Lexis Keene versus Riley Osborne, a match that was set up at the Vengeance Day pay-per-view when Lexis Keene came in and tried to disrespect the ladies of Chase U during their calendar launch. Riley Osborne stood up for Thea and JC and inserted himself. Osborne comes out and he looks up to the Chase U student section, and Thea isn't there. And he's very sad about this. We then have a very good match between these two guys. Osborne went up to the top rope at one point and looked back to the Chase U student section again. Thea still wasn't there. There was even a sign on a chair that said reserved for Thea Hale. So clearly Riley wanted her there, was looking forward to seeing her there, supporting her, and then she wasn't there. I have a very bad feeling that this is going to play into the theory that Arlene and Emmanuel have been throwing at me, but I still want to believe it'll be a happily ever after. Lexis Keene is able to get the victory here. And we then get a Kaylani Jordan video package. As the video is ending, we go to the women's locker room, and some of the girls are watching the video package in the locker room and seem to be supporting Kaylani. And then Kiana James and Izzy Dane come in, and they basically just take the locker room over, start bossing the girls around, making them move, because Kiana is a vet in the locker room and she deserves respect. They then begin to embarrass one of the newer girls named Brinley Reese. Just typical bullyism, as my daughter would call it. Good segment, but it is what it is. We then finally got our Carmelo Hayes promo, and he finally admits to attacking Trick Williams back in October. And he says that he'd do it again. He accuses Trick of believing his own hype, accuses Trick of trying to be like Mello, and just not wanting to play his role. All he was ever going to be was Mello's hype man. The plan was Mello was going to be world champion, Trick North American champion, but that wasn't good enough for Trick. And Trick had to go behind his back to try to go over him in the locker room. Of course, this is going to set up a match at Stand and Deliver. I have no doubt. We'll get to a little bit more with Mello in the final segment. We then go backstage, and Riley Osborne talks to JC and Thea. Riley trying to find out why Thea wasn't out there, and she's like, oh, I had to handle business, grown-ass woman stuff, and he was like, oh, okay, but we're still on for our date, right? And she was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. So next week, the February 13th episode of NXT, the day before Valentine's Day, we will get our Riley Osborne and Thea Hale dates. And hopefully Arlene and Emmanuel will be wrong. We then get Roxanne Perez versus Lola Vice. And again, this match kind of stemmed out of Vengeance Day when Roxanne Perez was challenging Lyra Valkyria for the NXT Women's Championship. Lola Vice came in, cashed in her breakout tournament contract, made the match a triple threat mid-match, almost got the victory, but instead lost. Lyra pinned Lola to retain the title. Roxanne didn't get pinned, didn't get made to submit, and lost her one-on-one opportunity. So she's out for vengeance here against Lola. This was just some fantastic women's wrestling, hard-hitting action from these two. Tatum Paxley tried to run in at one point with the breakout tournament contract because she wanted to cash it in, but she wasn't allowed to because, number one, she didn't win the breakout tournament, so it wasn't her contract to cash in. And number two, Lola had already cashed it in at Vengeance Day, so the contract was null and void. This allows Roxanne to hit the pop rocks onto Lola, get the victory. Tatum Paxley here definitely had like an R-Truth moment. I was cracking up, I'm not going to lie. We then had Lash legend Jakara Jackson and the rest of Metaphor backstage cutting a promo. They have a match coming up against Fallon Henley and Ren Sinclair. Ren Sinclair is actually one of the women you can find in the Ladies of Chase U calendar, by the way. The No Quarter Catch crew came in, and they won a match against Noam Dar for the Heritage title. But of course, that's going to have to wait because it doesn't get made for this week. And next week, Noam and Mensa have a tag team match. So it probably won't end up getting made until Roadblock. And we don't know which woman or which one of the No Quarter Catch crew will actually be the one to challenge for the cup. We then get Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson versus Fallon Henley and Ren Sinclair. This was a decent match. I wouldn't say it was great. I wouldn't say it was horrible, but it was decent. The Ladies of Metaphor dominated, got the W here. I'm a little bit surprised, but not really. You know, Lash has been in beast mode lately, but I love me some Fallon Henley. I wish they would do a little bit more with her. I wish they would give her a serious push. Honestly, I wish they would bring the NXT Women's Tag titles back because there's a lot of women that are struggling right now because they don't have that title. They only have the world title. The men have the NXT Championship, North American Championship, and Tag Team Championship. The women only have the World Championship. They need another title for some of these women. We then had Briggs backstage, and Jensen comes into the equation. He's trying to, reconnect with Briggs, see how he's doing. Briggs is getting ready to leave, and Jensen admits that he is lost without Briggs and Fallon. Briggs then gives him a serious dose of some tough love, throws him up against the locker, and reminds him that there's a performance center full of people who are dying to take his spot. He can either sit there and cry, or he can grow some balls. And Briggs walks off. So we're going to have to see what happens here with Jensen. I agree with Briggs on this one. Don't get me wrong. I liked Briggs and Jensen as a unit. I liked Briggs, Jensen, and Fallon. I liked everything they had to offer. But there comes a point when you've got to sink or swim. And this is that moment for Jensen. We've seen Briggs go out there, have some solo matches. He's done well. Hasn't won every single one of them, but he's performed well. Fallon is doing amazing. Jensen hasn't done shit since they folded. It's time for Jensen to step up. We then had Ava Raine and Jada Parker backstage, and Jada Once Adriana Rizzo one-on-one, hot off the heels of the match that we had at Vengeance Day, where it was OTM and Jada versus the D'Angelo family and Rizzo. Ava gives her the match, but tells her that OTM cannot be at ringside because the D'Angelo family is going to be getting ready for their tag team title match against Braun and Corbin that night, so they won't be at ringside. And Jada agrees to the terms of the stipulations. She leaves, and then Ridge Holland comes in and tells Ava that he still wants Gallus 3-on-1. And Ava is like, I can't do that for your own safety. It's like, but what I can do is give you all three of them in a row. So basically a gauntlet match is now set up. And if he gets past a member of Gallus, he gets the next member. And if at any point in the gauntlet Ridge loses, it's over. The whole thing with Gallus is done. And he agrees. Main event is Ilya Dragunov versus Dijak, hot off the heels of what happened earlier in the evening. This was just all-out war. They had a rivalry a while back, but it's kind of been dormant up until this point. I want to say it was right around the time that Ilya first won the title. They had a little bit of a rivalry going. But again, it's been dormant. It's just been kind of like hibernating. They kind of rekindled that here. Solid match. Ilya gets the H-bomb on Dijak for the victory. Post-match, Mello came out, started attacking Ilya Dragunov, grabbed the title, held it above his head, laid out Dragunov. So my prediction here is that at Roadblock, we're going to get Mello versus Dragunov. Trick isn't going to be on TV until Roadblock. He'll make his return at Roadblock. Take out Mello, cost him the title, and then at Stand and Deliver, we'll get Trick versus Mello. Mello will then go up to the main roster, leaving Trick behind. Trick will do what he's going to do as far as the NXT roster. That's what I see going on there. All in all, NXT delivered as it always does. There's a reason why I claim it to be my NXT. 8 out of 10 for this show. Curious to know what you guys thought about it. Let me know in the comments. I'm going to run one final commercial break. A little bit longer. This one is promoting everything you can find every Tuesday on Statboy Sports Bar. When we come back, I'm going to hit you with the shills real quick, and we'll get out of here. We'll be back in about 2.5 minutes.
And now, preview time. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
You ever wanted to come into a sports bar where the barkeeps know their game? Well, the Jeff Beecham Network Multiverse of Media has got a production just for you. Sit down and relax as the Stat Boy and his partner break down the statistics in all things sports. Whether it's football, basketball, motorsports, baseball, hockey, soccer, professional wrestling, mixed martial arts, boxing, and much, much more. All are welcome. Your barkeeps here keep you up to date and in the know of everything going on in sports, while also having a pleasant conversation about it all. Your host and owner of the bar, Statboy Mike. His partner in crime, Dory Lou. and a host of other guests coming in. The food's hot, the seats are warm, the drinks are ice cold, and the sports talk is plentiful. Casa EA Team Studios presents Stat Boy Sports Bar. Take a bar stool and enjoy the show.
And we're back. I feel like Emmanuel makes a very solid point here. 3 stages of hell possibly between Roxy and Lyra. But in any event, that is going to just about wrap things up for me today. Go ahead and get these shills out of the way. Make sure you tune in tonight, 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern, on the Greg Cherry brand, on the Jeff Meacham Network, on the Casa D18 Studios for the first time, the Greg Cherry Show. Greg's going to be doing football stuff, I'm sure, talking about the Super Bowl this week. I'm sure he's going to address the Cody Rock Roman thing. And for donations, and I'm not sure exactly how much, I don't have that information, but if you donate a certain amount, he's going to take pies in the face. So make sure you tune into the Greg Cherry Show tonight for all of those shenanigans. And then immediately following the Greg Cherry Show, 4:45 Pacific, 7:45 Eastern, AEW Dynamite Watch-Along event. Again, AEW World Tag Team Champions Ricky Starks and Big Bill defending their titles against Sting and Darby Allin. We've also got Jericho versus Konosuke Takeshita. We've got Tony Khan with a huge announcement. We've got Timeless Tony Storm versus Red Velvet. Swerve versus Hangman 3. Winner gets Joe at Revolution. So much in store tonight on Dynamite. Noah and I will be there calling all the action for you guys. 4:45 Pacific, 7:45 Eastern. And then make sure you guys tune in this Sunday. For the first time ever, we are doing a professional sports watch-along for the Super Bowl. We're going to go live starting at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 o'clock Eastern. Kickoff is at 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern. Statboy Mike, Dory Lou, Jeff Meacham, and some of the other regulars from the sports bar are going to be in the building. Statboy Mike giving you live play-by-play commentary, live reactions, thoughts about the Super Bowl commercials, Usher's halftime performance, Reba McEntire's performance of the national anthem, and so much more. If the ratings are good for our Super Bowl coverage, then we may start doing more pro sports watch-alongs. We can do things like the Indy 500 or the Daytona 500. We can do things like the World Series, the NBA Finals, the Stanley Cup Finals, maybe Wimbledon for tennis. We can do maybe some Olympic coverage for certain sports. The sky is the limit, but it's up to you, our viewers, to put the ratings up on this and make it worth our time. That I agree with. So that is going to take care of it as far as the shills for today. Oh, one last one. This Friday, immediately following For the Love of Wrestling, me and Jeff's latest episode of The Dad's Not Always on Wrestling, the top 10 Beatles songs featuring my dad, will be back with us to do this one. We're going to be celebrating the 60th anniversary of the Fab Four's first iconic appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show as it was February 9th, 1964, that they played that stage for the first time. As a matter of fact, it was 60 years ago today that they touched down at JFK Airport in New York, touching American soil for the first time as the Beatles, to go into that performance. So, big history here today and Friday, and we are going to be representing that on the Dads, not always on wrestling. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel, for my coverage of AEW Dynamite, where I'll be talking about the show from this evening. Until then, thank you all for tuning in and joining me, and I will catch you guys tomorrow.
The Jeff Meacham Network's Multiverse of Media. For over 15 years, the recognized symbol of excellence and the standard bearer in coverage of sports and entertainment.
Thank you, JJ. Appreciate you.